How did it feel to collaborate this as a mother daughter? I mean, that to me is probably, yeah, I certainly don't want to lose sight of the very important messages and the themes, and the potential impact that or the impact, not potential, the impact your book will have. But there's a part about this collaboration, mother and daughter, that's just really so beautiful. I wonder if you could sort of talk about that.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
yeah.
Just sort of a natural extension of
Mhm.
our relationship as a mother and daughter, but also as friends,
Mhm.
and imparting a lot of the values and principles that my parents have instilled in me. As you say, the sort of the messaging in the book are the messages that were imparted on me as a child through the stories that I was told by my parents.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious. Motivation, be audacious.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission is to inspire you to live your best audacious life ever. I'm totally thrilled to have you here with us today, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us. Just like a master storyteller captivates an audience, we aim to spark conversations that ignite a passion for authenticity, inclusion, and resilience. Now picture this for a moment. Storytelling is like a bridge, and what I mean by that is, a bridge. This bridge connects us across diverse experiences and backgrounds. Each story we share becomes a plank on that bridge, helping us to cross over to understanding, acceptance, and compassion. In today's episode, we'll explore how storytelling fosters conversations about diversity and acceptance, and how parents and educators can build resilience in children through the power of narrative. Our guests today are the dynamic mother-daughter duo Kate and Deb Dunn, the creative team behind Dreaming of Dresses, a children's book that beautifully weaves together themes of moral courage, inclusion, and the celebration of differences. Now, Kate, who happens to be a past guest here on the Audacious Living Podcast, is a sociologist and gender studies expert, and she brings a deep insight to their storytelling process, while Deb is an accomplished artist, and she brings those stories to life through vibrant illustrations. Together, their mission is to create stories that resonate with both children and adults, fostering community, empathy, and belonging. So as we dive into their creative process, you'll hear their personal anecdotes about how family stories shape their work and inspired Dreaming of Dresses. So let's jump into this enlightening conversation with Kate and her mother, Deb. Enjoy. Kate, Deb, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's not often. In fact, this is probably the first time I've had a mother-daughter duo joining me on the podcast. So I appreciate you both being here. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank
and
you.
all of your support for this book. It means a
Yeah,
lot.
no, the book, and we're here. Dreaming of Dresses. This is what it is. Thank you. I've gotten my copy. It's such a wonderful story of authenticity, and there's so much wonderful message in there. And it's a tag team duo because Deb, you did the illustration,
did.
and right. So maybe kind of let's get into it, because I really. What oftentimes happens, right, is what projects where people will unveil something. Hey, we got this thing, and everyone goes, "Oh, it just came out of the blue." But my guess is this is probably something that's been in the works for a little while. Is that kind of fair to say? How long has this thing been in the works?
Well, we wrote it in 2016, and like most kids, we had my nephew and my mom's grandson. There's always just one more book before bed. And
Okay.
so we were running out of books. So you make up books, you make up stories on the fly.
Yeah.
And this was one of the stories. And he really enjoyed it. I think he was about
Mhm.
6 or 7 at the time. And so my mom said, we really need to write this down, because what if we forget? We forget the characters' names, we forget part of the story. So we wrote it down, and then it just sort of sat in a desk drawer, but we would read it from one nephew to the next. So this is, first nephew outgrew it. He's now 15. So he's a little bit too old for maybe the story, not the messaging so much, but the book itself. And then it went down to, the next youngest. And and then we sort of had a conversation and said, maybe this is something that we should pursue getting published, and it would be fun to collaborate on it even further, and you do the illustrations, and then it led to a very serendipitous phone call that I had with my publisher. And she was just a pleasure to work with, and she loved the messaging of the book, and she has twin daughters, and so it really resonated with her as a parent.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that was really affirming for us.
Yeah.
And what I love about that story is how beautifully it unfolded. It was just just something that we did and something that we were doing in our family for our family, and now it's spread out and branched out to it is what it is. Deb, I'd like to ask you, because you did the illustration. Is that what you an illustrator by trade or nature, or how'd that come to be?
I work as an artist.
Okay.
I have done illustrations in the past. Years ago, when adult coloring was a big thing, I did the cover for the Stampington magazine for adult coloring. So I do love doing that kind of thing, but not what I typically do.
Gotcha. And there's some hidden messages in your illustration work. Can you talk about some of the things that you've dropped in, if you will?
Well, I think I incorporated a little bit of our family into everything, even down to Kate's little dog. Harry is there, and he's dreaming of bones. So we like a lot of whimsy in our family, and I think that kind of followed through.
That was the first one. And again, and that's also quite beautiful, because it's not now you're honoring your family through the work. Let's sort of talk about some of the themes. Like, I mean, so you're reading the story to your nephew, right? You're reading the story to your nephew, and you're making this up on the fly. Is that what's happening? And you're saying, let's add this, let's add that. Is that how it went?
A little bit of that, and then combined with some of the stories that he had shared with me of observations that he had made in the classroom, friends that he had made that maybe were a little bit different from him, that he had never been exposed to or he had seen before. And we started talking about gender.
Okay.
My background, as you know, is sociology and gender studies. And so I thought, oh, this is a great, sort of catalyst for a conversation. And as you know, stories and storytelling on podcasts, or if you're writing a book, it has that disarming power of generating those conversations with your kids and questions that they have. And it really came down to, I noticed that a girl was playing with trucks, or I noticed that a boy was playing with dolls. And so I said, oh, let's have a conversation. This is great.
Right.
Why is that different? And, why do you think you've never seen that before? And can you be maybe a friend to that person? Can you connect with them in some way? And so the story evolved with, those sorts of conversations.
And so how, I want to follow this through. So you created this thing. Deb, how did you get into this? Were you kind of you picked up and you added a layer to it, or how did that evolve?
So when Kate said, I think I'm going to turn this into a book, and she said, would you do the illustrations? And I said, absolutely. I mean, I love these little characters, and yeah.
And so were you also telling the stories too?
No, it's all Kate. It was all Kate. But I would be listening and thinking, this is adorable. I mean, this has got such a great message, and it's sweet. And
I was sort of conjuring up in my mind what the characters might look like.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't say this to my mom. I gave her full carte blanche, and she showed me some of the original illustrations. And I thought, that's exactly how I saw Everett and Olivia and Jameson and Isla in my head, in my own imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were definitely on the same wavelength with that.
Definitely in sync. Deb, what stood out to you about the characters? What was it that made them so special for you?
Well, I think with Everett, I just fell in love with him immediately. And so I sort of saw him as this little boy with red hair and a couple of little freckles on his nose, which was very similar to my own grandson's looks. Mm-hmm. And just his kindness and his ability to stay true to himself, but also constantly wanting to welcome other people in. So I knew exactly how I wanted him to look. The other characters sort of followed suit the same way.
Right. Right. How did it feel to collaborate this as a mother daughter? I mean, that to me is probably, yeah, I certainly don't want to lose sight of the very important messages and the themes, and the potential impact that or the impact, not potential, the impact your book, will have. But there's a part about this collaboration, mother and daughter, that's just really so beautiful. I wonder if you could sort of talk about that.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
yeah.
Just sort of a natural extension of our relationship as a mother and daughter, but also as friends, and imparting a lot of the values and principles that my parents have instilled in me. As you say, the sort of the messaging in the book are the messages that were imparted on me as a child through the stories that I was told by my parents at
Yes.
bedtime. So, courage to be friends with other people, exploring, getting curious about the questions that you have, or maybe the beliefs that you have, and unlearning and unpacking some of those beliefs at times. Moral courage, right? So having the courage to step away from the rest of the group that, questioning those the social norms, and being different on your own, and coming down to being in the classroom and recognizing, is somebody sitting by themselves, having lunch by themselves, being
Right.
friends with that person. So how can I be a better friend? How can I be a better ally? And even taking a lot of those values and principles from children's books and carrying them into adulthood, because
Yeah.
as much
Yeah.
as this is a story for children, what I'm hearing from a lot of parents as well is this is a great message for adults, and we need those kinds of messages now more than ever.
And so yes, I absolutely agree with you. There's no question about that. And I think also too, this process that you've gone through to get to where you're at now, really underscores the importance and the value of storytelling, and how much our learning, our understanding of the world, our understanding ourselves happens through stories. And even if you're like your nephew hearing the same one over and over and over again, it is very important, because it helps shape sort of how we see the world. And so I guess my I think I know the answer I want to ask anyways, is how important has storytelling been to your family overall?
Very impactful.
Very, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something we always did with our own children.
Yes.
So bedtime and story time and making up stories was something we did every evening.
And there's power in those words and in the story itself, but also in the illustrations. So when we were collaborating on this, a lot of the illustrations that my mom had incorporated really reflected diversity and inclusion, and all of those things that are key players and key themes in our book. So it was really important for us to have all children be able to resonate with the message.
That's right.
But also see themselves reflected in the illustrations, in the pictures. So they could say, oh, I look like this child, or I look kind of like this, or
seeing yourselves, right? Like you've got seeing yourself. Yeah.
And being affirmed in that way is really important in storytelling.
So Deb, you said that you've always been doing this. Does that mean there's other stories uncovered that you haven't unleashed to the world yet? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I did when they were little, when Kate and my son were little. I would do little illustrations and read stories to them at night. So they're all tucked away. But
and all of our pets, so hamsters, and goldfish, and birds, they all have their own story. But my mom now is a local artist in Burlington.
Yes.
Her pictures are stories in and of themselves. They're very whimsical, they're very ethereal, and she's very modest. So, but I see those stories even in her art today.
Yes.
I write my stories first on the canvas and then I paint over them.
Yeah.
So they're tucked away.
No, I think it's beautiful, and as modest she is, you're quite proud. And so I think you balance off each other nicely. the idea of getting these messages of authenticity and inclusion and diversity, it's clear that it was strong that they were put out and shared. Where did that drive come from for you? And either of you, I don't know, like you could answer.
Yeah, I think for me, and we had this conversation a few months ago about rejection, right? I think as a child, and as an adult, you will face rejection. As a child, you might face it in the form of bullying. And there's sort of that creation of in and out groups that we see, and we see it from elementary all the way into adulthood. And so really wanting a story that shared that message of common humanity, that,
Yes.
you know, we all feel the sting of rejection at some point, and really questioning like why are we maybe participating in that? Why might we be rejecting a person? Is it to belong to another group? Because if that's what rejection ultimately, or what belonging really is rejecting somebody else, then it's not true belonging. It's not true
Right.
inclusion.
Right.
So that for me is sort of what drove that, you know, that singular
Right.
most important message of the book.
Right. Curious, Deb, yourself, what was driving? What was it for you?
Absolutely. I feel exactly the same way. Always that, you know, everybody, let's get everybody. We're stronger together. We
Yeah.
really, truly are stronger together than we are individually.
Absolutely. The other thing I appreciate about this is that you're focusing specifically on children's books, children's literature, right? And yeah, look, it's no wonder, like, so it's no wonder, like, when I look at myself, you know, as a kid, I loved reading Curious George. And so it's no wonder now that I like asking questions. I have this general curiosity about the world. And so, and I'm not saying it's only because of Curious George, but Curious George, oops.
Love it.
On the roll there. It's you know, I'm not saying it's because of Curious George why I ask questions now, but he gave me the permission to go, oh, it's okay, and there's nothing wrong with exploring. And so when you look at what you're doing, is you potentially are shaping, you know, the viewpoint and perspectives of young children that they can carry into adult world, and that to me is just so wonderful. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Thank you. And I love that perspective that you've pulled from, is, you know, you got curious about the world because of Curious George. And I think we all have that one author. For me, it was Robert Munsch.
Okay,
And
yeah.
what did Robert Munsch always explore? The, you know, diversity, difference. I'm thinking David's father, right? This giant man that had the big fork and the big spoon. He was different, right? Paper Bag Princess. You know, a very different story from your typical fairy tales, that the woman saves herself. She's not waiting for the prince. And so that idea of, oh, I read a lot of Robert Munsch, a lot of his books were read to me. I wonder if that's sort of what shaped who I am now as an author.
Deb, you planted the seed there. I mean, you did at an early age. I don't know if you realize that, but I do think that there's a piece of this where you know, my mom used to say that you bend the tree when it's young, right? And you start early, and then it kind of, as it evolves and it grows, it becomes what it's meant to be. And so there's much to say about. Was that intentional for you, Deb? Was that what you looking to do, or?
No, not at all. But you know, they're little sponges, right? When they're little, so everything that's positive, they absorb.
Yes. The other one for me, as we're talking about childhood books, Judy Blume. I was a big fan of Judy Blume books, and you know, Super Fudge, and was it Revenge of the Teenage 12? After the I can't remember. But the point was around identity, right? That was a big fitting in, which is really important for kids, right? Like fitting in and your identity and what your place in the world is. And I think, and you know, when we talk about, and I think we were talking offline, I was saying, well, I figured out where I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. This is what I started to do. I think that's so important, that identity. And so that's why, again, the themes of your books is so important, because we have to know where we are in this world to figure out who we are.
Exactly. And the aspect of flourishing, right, is really, really important, and self-actualization to that identity. Who am I? Where do I fit in? And also, how can I be of support to others? Right? How can I be and that's, I think, where a lot of our happiness and purpose comes from.
Yes.
In knowing that we knowing your purpose in the world is great, and it's really, really important. And taking that a step further is also connecting with other people and recognizing that, there's so much that you can be doing in the world.
Yep.
Mr. Rogers always said, look for the helpers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so wanting to be a helper and wanting to, volunteer or, connect with someone who might be feeling left out, or those are really important messages that you carry as children throughout the trajectory of your life. Those are things that never go away.
I agree. They stay with you and they don't go anywhere. Absolutely. Sort of curious kind of feedback that you guys have received at this point. Again, I can tell you for myself, I think it's a wonderful story, and I think the images. This is truly a beautiful collaboration because it's a wonderful story coupled with some vivid imagery. And so I'm curious what you've heard thus far.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
you've got your colleagues and your friends that have very positive. Yeah.
We have a really great support network around us of, friends and family and coworkers, and they've shared the message with their own children and, some that are young adults themselves in their 20s,
Right.
and looking to find their way in the world and exploring that aspect of that you said of identity. So the feedback has been really positive so far, and even my friends and colleagues who don't have children, but who have children in their lives are sharing this story.
Yeah.
Or saying, these messages are really, really important in a time where sometimes it feels like all hope is lost. So, we really need these stories, these powerful stories that are encouraging acceptance and inclusion and allyship and friendship.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and if you sort of go back, the goal, those are all things that fall within the goals of this podcast about living audaciously, right? It's none of if you're not doing any of those things, you're not living audaciously, and it's so much about taking that first step. Like people, are oftentimes afraid to be themselves, to express themselves, to be who they are, for fear of rejection, for fear of being made fun of, for all of these things. And we know in the playground, in the sandbox, that can happen, right? And so teaching our children the resiliency to sort of move past that. And what I see here is that this book is helping both educators and parents make their children more resilient to take on what the world offers, if you will.
And building that resilience is so important at a young age, right? Because they are making mistakes and teaching them, sort of the right way and the right path.
Yes.
And again, that idea that if rejecting someone means belonging, then it's not true belonging. Sort of stepping away from that and again, building that moral courage to do the right thing and is really, really important. And it was, again, a value that was passed down from my parents to me. So really, it's the ultimate message of the book is really that is coming together and that common humanity of we're all in this together. Even if it feels like most days we're leading very separate lives, is we're all experiencing something, right? Everyone's going through something. And so if we can exercise a little bit of kindness and compassion,
that's right,
that will go a long way.
You're preaching to the choir over here. Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, were there any kind of challenges as you're sort of going through this process? Or, at the end of the day, the challenges don't define us, what we get to, when we get to the other side of them, right? And so the other side, you've got this great book, right? But just sort of curious, was there anything that made it difficult, or you weren't sure about? Or I can't. I love my mother dearly, and I'd love to work with them. I don't know what it would be like to put a book on. I have no idea, right? Maybe we drive each other crazy. I don't know. I'm just curious what it was for you guys, like what that was like.
I think we had beginner's luck, didn't we?
I know. The process was
it was seamless, really. Yeah.
But the getting there, the publishing the book was probably the hardest because, as we talked about, rejection. And I look at rejection very differently now than I did when I was, a teenager or even
Right.
early mid-20s. And I chatted with you about receiving so many rejection letters initially on this book that I could have wallpapered an entire room. And I wish I had saved those rejection letters. But that was probably the most difficult. And then connecting with Marcia changed the whole trajectory of the experience and the journey. It was so positive. And she's such a warm, positive person and believed in the messaging of the story so much that she brought it to fruition. And
Beautiful.
so it ended up being really seamless, and it was a great experience.
Yeah.
And working with my mom is always so much fun.
Oh,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm very much about enjoying the moment and appreciating the now. But I can't help but think, like, what's the next? Like, is the next chapter coming out? There are volumes. Like, where, I hope, Deb, you haven't put away your paintbrushes yet, because there's a lot of work and your art supplies. Because it sounds like there's a couple volumes in store.
just waiting.
Yeah.
I have the easy part.
Yeah, maybe there could definitely be another book, and maybe it will be with Everett and his cast of friends, and maybe it might be a little bit different. But I think now that we're sort of on this journey, it would be exciting to pursue a second book. But yeah, I guess we'll see.
Well, you're pros now. You've done it the first time. You got it out of the way. So you're professional authors now, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to say. But even more wonderful to say that with your daughter or say that with your mother. And so that's I think that's, again, to me, that's sort of a beautiful part of the journey. For listeners that wanted to access their own copy of Dreaming of Dresses, where could we send them, or where could they go?
Yeah, it's available online on Amazon. It's also available on the Indigo website. If people are looking for the direct link, they can go to my website, which is rootedinwellnesscanada.ca. And then we're usually posting on our Instagram little updates with book events that we have going on and readings and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, give us a follow or check out the website, and we would love your support. And if people want to chat more about the book, they can definitely connect with us online and through Instagram or through the website.
Yeah.
Delightful. This is a fun part of it, Deb, right? After it's out there, you get to interact and engage and get your IG account popping.
Absolutely. We had a wonderful book launch, and it was just wonderful to see the children all at the different little stations making friendship bracelets and affirmation blocks, and all what the book was about was really everyone coming together and
making new friends.
Oh, for sure.
Even the adults.
Yeah.
Right.
Deb, tell me what this has done for your whole family. So as much as this is, you're collaborating with your daughter and you're coming together, I'd like to think that there's a lot more happening with the rest of your family. Can you sort of talk about that?
Oh, for sure. And starting even with the book launch and just to see my grandson sitting and interacting with all the other children. And it was really a wonderful day. That's for sure. And for them to look through the book and say, is that me? And that looks a little bit like me. And is that Harry? Wow. And yeah.
Wow. From a legacy standpoint, that's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'm just curious, is your nephew looking for royalties or a cut of this? Because he's going to say, he's going to say, I'm the one that made this happen. Has you talked? Have you negotiated with him yet on those lines? Yeah.
Luckily, we haven't had to. But, maybe he has asked for a labubu, so maybe that will be his compensation. That's, I guess, the toy of the year. So I guess in exchange for that, he'll waive all royalty rights.
Can you hear me? Can you say it?
Oh, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Sorry, my mic. I don't know. It's crazy technology there. Anyhow, this is just so awesome, and I loved it the moment I saw it and I love it even more now. Thank you again for sharing. Thank you for being here and sharing on this platform. This isn't as much as this is a beautiful collaboration. And I've talked lots about that and how much I appreciate that. There are also some really key and strong and powerful messages that are being amplified through your work and what we amplify here on this podcast as much as possible. So thank you, Deb. Thank you, Kate, for being here, and I appreciate you for being guests on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thank you so much again. And keep sharing your positivity and warmth, because it makes such a difference.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Let's stop that. How'd that go, guys? How'd that feel?
It was great.
Back we are here on the podcast, and what an inspiring conversation with Kate and Deb. One of the key takeaways from our chat is the undeniable power of storytelling to shape understanding of diversity and acceptance. Their insights on building resilience in children through narratives are truly invaluable for both parents and educators. And what really stood out to me was the genuine warmth and connection between them. It was so beautiful. Their shared passion for creating meaningful stories is contagious, and it's clear that their family values deeply influence their work. It's a beautiful reminder that our stories can bridge gaps and bring communities closer together. If you'd like to connect with Kate and Deb directly, their contact details, of course, are in the show notes below. Be sure to check out their book, Dreaming of Dresses, which is available online. And don't, of course, you certainly want to take advantage of it, because it is a fabulous story. And as we wrap up today, let's return to the storytelling bridge we talked about earlier, because every story we tell and share strengthens that bridge, making it more resilient and capable of supporting our collective journey towards acceptance and inclusion. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you heard today,